What you see now is a photo of the top 10 people that I consider one of the most influential people in history. And I don't mean just American history, all of the world history. From Martin Luther all the way to FDR and MLK, including Mahatma Gandhi and Abraham Lincoln, Joan of Arc, and Amerigo Vespucci. The photos that have a check mark means that person has been talked about on this channel. I actually never talked about Niccolo Machiavelli, so I'll probably be making a biography sometime soon. And so let's get the top 10 historical figures in action. Darkshan presents a Hanson Shed production, the top 10 historical figures. Side note, I should mention that the rank of all these people is based on my opinion. I researched all these guys, well, except for even Machiavelli, and he's the only one I researched so recently that I don't really need to research more, except for Machiavelli. And all I can say right now is that all these people on this rank is actually based on my own opinion, so don't think of this as an official list or something, okay? Starting at the bottom with number 10, we have Martin Luther. Now, Martin Luther, why I put him on this list is because of his 95 Theses. You might remember the story from the video that we made on the video about the series Hands on History, which is where I actually started getting my love for history. But just for a quick review, Martin Luther basically nailed his 95 Theses onto the gate of the doors of a church. Now, today, that would be considered vandalism, but back then, that church door was basically a billboard for news, so anyone could actually nail anything or stick anything onto that gate. And the church didn't like these 95 Theses because, turns out, they loved the money. At least the people who were giving those tickets to heaven did. And they put him on trial. And then Martin Luther considerately said that he will not go against his conscience. Now, the people who were actually trialing probably didn't know what conscience meant, so they basically just sentenced him to prison. The reason why he's on the number 10 spot on our list is because, well, he wanted to just reform the church forever without any war, but instead he split the church. So that was actually kind of lame of him, to be honest. And that's why he's on the number 10 list. He didn't do a good job, but he did do a little bit of his job well, so he's on the number 10 and top 10 list. Hooray! Number 9, Alexander the Great. We all probably know why Alexander the Great is, great. He conquered, nations, and he was even King Pharaoh and king of, 3 different empires. He was Pharaoh of Egypt, king of Persia, and king of Macedonia. I mean, that's kind of great, to be honest. And I discussed his empire and how he conquered it and what happened to him in a part of my series, in my 40-episode series on Hands on History, which was actually created in 2020, so you can just go check that out. It's 2 years old now. Actually, 3, to be honest, if you count this year. However, the only reason why he stopped conquering was because his soldiers refused to conquer, and Alexander died along the way back home. So that was unlucky. Why he's on number 9 is because he is influential, because without him, back then, this was the largest empire of all time. I actually considered putting him on the top 5 list, but then after that, and then later, I remembered that this guy failed to keep his troops together and conquer all the way to a place like all the world. He actually was probably destined to conquer all of Asia, but then because of his troops, he couldn't. And so that's why I'm putting him on number 9. Number 8, Joan of Arc. We all know the story of a French peasant girl meeting God, telling her to go to war and reclaim France for France. And so she did. In a series of battles in 1429, which happened in a few days, they were able to take some settlements and some castles of the English. She kept doing this, and she also kept fighting the English and also reclaimed a lot of land for the French until her capture in 1930, where she was in England, where she was convicted as a witch, and then in 1931 she was burned on the stake, proven guilty that she's a witch. I'm pretty sure they just burned her because she was on the French side. Why she's on number 8 and not in the top 6 is because of a lot of reasons. Sure, first of all, I don't really believe in God. So if she saw God trying to tell her to go to war, sure, it's her decision. And then again, when she actually said a prophecy that if they didn't include her into the army, that some of the guard would die, and then they eventually die, that's probably still coincidence. I personally don't believe in God, and there's only one way I can explain all this. That the guard were really believing all this and tried to do all that and tried to actually not die and prove Joan of Arc wrong, but then because of that they completely forgot their own ideas and they died. That's why I'm going to put this on superstition list and put her on number 8. Number 7, Amerigo Vespucci. I actually consider putting Christopher Columbus on this because he was the European who actually discovered the Americas. But then again, I also consider putting Leif Erikson on this because he was the actual one who discovered it. Although he didn't call it Asia or America, to be honest. He called it Vinland because of some grapes and things. But why not leave Erikson and not Christopher Columbus on here is because Amerigo Vespucci was the one who realized that this new world was not Asia. Instead, after charting the courses on there, and after visiting there in 1499 and having 2 voyages between 1499 all the way to 1502, and possibly a third one in 1503, he found out that the coastline was different from Asia's. Meaning that he was the one who actually discovered this was a new continent, while everyone else would be like, meh, I'm going to the end of the world, as the Vikings did, or I don't care. I don't think I discovered a new continent. I found the road to Asia, and that's more important. I will not admit that I've discovered a new continent. Well, that was weird, Columbus. So that is why we named the Americas America instead of Columbia or Ericia. Wait, what? But why is he at number 7? Well, one thing is because he was an old timer, and he was the smartest between Leif Erikson and Christopher Columbus. But why on number 7 is because I don't think he's that great. He did have a great impact by giving a new land, but then also he was also one of the causes why people of the Native Americans on America were actually killed because of European disease. Number 6, Thomas Jefferson. Now, Thomas Jefferson, I put him on number 6. I actually considered putting George Washington here because actually George Washington was the first leader of the President of the United States of America, meaning he was the first representative of America until I guess they invented the ambassador for America. But Thomas Jefferson wrote the Declaration of Independence, which is actually something way more important. He was the main author, although he wasn't the only author, and he was the main drafter too. I mean, he had to draft several pieces. He worked so hard to actually create a Declaration of Independence, and to use it against the British, that needs some courage, man. He wrote the Declaration of Independence on June 1776, and after he finished it, he and the others signed the Declaration of Independence and sent it to Britain. One thing I should mention is that there is so much more that I could talk about too, but Thomas Jefferson, why he's on number 6 is because of, he wasn't that good. And there are way more people who could have influenced the world more than him because he played a role in creating America, but the people who are above the list are actually people who would have influenced how America was and how they shaped America. Also, creating America is very important too, I'll have to admit. Number 5, Niccolo Machiavelli. Now, Niccolo Machiavelli is a good person because he was actually the father of modern political theory. With his book called The Prince, he actually gained worldwide phenomenon. And one of the other things that he did was shape the thinking of the world. He was a big fan of the Medici family, and he was also a big fan of the Republic that he dreamed of, but while he was alive, it never happened. And yeah, that kind of sucks for this guy. However, he does deserve the number 5 spot on our list, and he is in the top 5 on our list. And so that's about it. And why he's on top 5 or not somewhere else, lower than 5, is because his book actually did influence a lot of our life. And because of all this, we actually probably not have all the politics that we have here and not all of that political theory. So that's why I'm giving him number 5 on our spot on the list. Number 4, Abraham Lincoln. Now, Abraham Lincoln, he was the one who actually helped win the Union's part on the Civil War, which started on April 12th of 1861 to April 9th of 1865. About 4 years, but not actually accurately. But why number 4 and not in the top 3? I guess he does. There are people who actually deserve the number 3 spot more than him because they did things that changed the whole world, while Abraham Lincoln just changed the United States of America. But this change was pretty influential, but probably not as influential as the other things that have happened throughout the other people have done in the top 3. The events that the events that the top 3 people did were probably, in my opinion, more influential than the events that Abraham Lincoln did. Arguably, you could say that for Gandhi's events on the Indian independence, but then again, that also affected Britain. So that's, I guess, one of the most important things that happened. And I'll also explain why Gandhi's on number 3. Number 3, Mahatma Gandhi. Now, Mahatma Gandhi, I guess he's known for starting his own movement for the independence of India from Britain, which actually also split India into 2, Pakistan and India, in 1906. And that's such an important sense because without that, India would probably still be a British empire. A British colony, and almost no country in the world is a colony anymore. Actually, in fact, no country in the world is a colony. Every country in Africa is now independent, and the other countries in the world who used to be colonies are now uncolonized. So today, I'd say that we're living in a much freer world than before, at least in terms of country. So Mahatma Gandhi actually helped break down the British Empire, which I guess wasn't that bad, but then again, most things that happened there is that it's not so good. A lot of abuse and a lot of taking away profit too, which I guess India really needed. But then again, he also put down the he also helped split India into Pakistan and India, indirectly, in my opinion. Indirectly, he didn't want to cause it, but when he destroyed India and broke the ties from the British Empire, well, I guess that helped split Pakistan and India. Which is why he's on number 3. You guys can argue about that on the comments below, and you guys can really say a lot of things about it. And those people in India watching this, I guess you guys can disagree and say he's on number 1, but this is my opinion. Number 2, Franklin Delano Roosevelt. Now, Franklin Delano Roosevelt does deserve the number 2 spot on our list because he helped prevent World War II. Actually, he didn't help prevent World War II, but he helped the Allies win the World War II and to keep the freedom in the world, and also to stop Hitler's very racial things against the Jews and more pro-Aryan status. I guess Aryans aren't that bad, but then again, Hitler was probably said his ancestry is also kind of Jewish, so I'm actually surprised he hated the Jews. But then again, he considers himself a German, so I'm not really surprised. However, he did help end the tensions in World War II with the Allies and Nazi Germany, but then he never lived to see the end of the war. He died on the last year of the war before the atomic bomb was allowed the "okay, let's go" by Woodrow Wilson. He was probably the one who was supposed to let the A-bomb onto Japan, but then he died before he could. He had 12 years of president, and also he was going to be having 16 years, but then because of his sudden death, he only was able to manage 3, but he did win the 4th term and died in the early days of his 4th term. And that's it. Also, one of the reasons why he's on number 2 is because he had like 12 years as president when normally they get 8. And he was going to have a 4th term, and no one has ever done a third, and not even heard of a 4th. He's probably the only one who's gone over 2 terms. However, why he's not a number 1 is because he didn't do something that MLK did. So, let's see, number 1. Number 1. Martin Luther King Jr. Now, Martin Luther King Jr., he's on number 1 because of his "I Have a Dream" speech and also his civil rights movement involvement from 1955 with the starting with the Montgomery boycott to 1968, which is the year where he was assassinated on a hotel roof. Yikes, actually. That's pretty bad. That sucks. And if MLK was still alive after 1968, then what would he have done? He would have done so much. And he would have done so much more than the March to Washington, too. He would have probably started doing lots more unracial work. However, if he was still alive today, then I guess he would have helped the Black Lives Matter movement. And I'm just saying, but MLK does deserve the number 1 spot on my list. He did do a lot of work in the American history, but he was inspired by Gandhi, which is one of the reasons why he's on number 3. And he did so much to undo the civil... sorry, I'm doing hiccups now. The civil rights and the racial bias and the racial Jim Crow segregation laws in America, which actually helped undo most of them in the world. So all I'm going to say is that Martin Luther King Jr. does deserve this. And there's no other reason why he shouldn't go any lower. Oh my god, I need to cure these hiccups. So there you have it. In my opinion, the top 10 historical figures from the 10th place to the 1st place. So if you guys want to learn more about 9 of the people who I made a tick mark at the beginning of the episode, then you can go search for them on my Hands on History history series, or you can also go on to my biography videos or my Who Was review books, and also my Darkson episode biographies. So I'll see you guys in the next episode. Shadan out. Peace. P.S. You can disagree with me down in the comments below, but still, please give me a like. See you soon. Shadan out. Really, peace.